Analysis now from Michael O'Hanlon, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, author of more than 20 books on war, defense, and diplomacy. Michael, Putin made a barely veiled threat of using nuclear weapons. Should we take that seriously? Is this all talk? How do you see it?
Hi, Shep. I think it's mostly talk, but it also needs to be taken seriously because, of course, the consequences of being wrong would be astronomical. You know, this could be a very specific response to the idea that we should be shipping longer-range missiles to Ukraine, which could, in theory, reach near Moscow if the Ukrainians targeted Russian territory. And the Russians in the past few days have said that would be a red line without specifying what that meant. Maybe Putin was sort of filling in the blanks on what that meant today with the red line talk. Maybe he's just trying to create a general sense of fear in the West, where we're tending to get a little bit confident that Ukraine is on a roll. And rather than let us get too confident, Putin wants to remind us that he has a lot of weapons that he hasn't used yet. And he could be disruptive in one way, shape, or form. And he's willing to run some risk, not attacking New York or Paris, but maybe a demonstration shot, maybe sinking a ship in the Baltic Sea, doing something that would scare us because it would be the first use of nuclear weapons in 77 years, and yet still, hopefully for him, not require a major counter-reaction. So I think he's trying to inject that fear into the politics, perhaps with the goal of weakening Europe's resolve, getting some more Europeans to cry for compromise as they see natural gas shortages looming for this winter. So he could be playing to that kind of goal as well. So I think it's mostly talk, mostly psychology, but it still can't be ignored.
I got a push alert from the Wall Street Journal about 90 seconds ago. The headline is, Putin is backed into a corner. There's a playbook that shows what comes next. What is it?
Well, I think if he's backed into a corner, then indeed all bets are off. But what does that mean to be backed into a corner? Right now, he still holds 20% of Ukraine. He still has us all talking about Ukraine probably never joining NATO. He's got some of his goals at the moment. Now, the Ukrainians are not going to stop with the war in this kind of a circumstance. They're going to keep trying to liberate more territory. And maybe Putin starts to lose some more. But I'm not sure he's going to lose all of it. And he probably can still work out a deal where Ukraine does not join NATO. So I don't know that he's really backed into a corner. He probably wants us to think that he sees it that way, because the more we have that view, the more we're inclined to back down. But I think that he's not really anywhere near a corner right now.
You know, but he's reportedly been recruiting Russian prisoners to go fight in Ukraine. I mean, what does that tell us about the state of this invasion? It clearly has not gone his way, Michael.
That's absolutely correct, Shepard. I have no doubt that you're right about that. But I think Putin still has a certain arrogance that he's got a country 4 or 5 times the size of Ukraine. It's the great Russian military machine, after all. They'll recover. War goes through multiple phases. Russia's had some success through the spring. Now Ukraine's having some success in the late summer. Maybe he thinks the next round is going to be for him. I think he's an arrogant guy and a stubborn guy, and he's not necessarily looking at the facts the right way, unfortunately. That could make him risky.
Michael O'Hanlon, live from, you just never know where Michael is. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.